Hello, everyone. It's that Weems guy here for an episode, and this one probably won't be as long as normal because it's going to be a monologue. It's just me, and I'm recording this on Sunday, January the 11th at about 10:45 p.m. Eastern. Um, I'm just going to address a couple of things that are hot topic in the news and all over social media the past few days. And this is at the request of many of the show's audience. I don't want to delve too deeply into the weeds of the incident in Minnesota, as far as justified or not. Of course, quite frankly, I haven't interviewed any of the people involved, and I don't like making hard and fast opinions just based on video, without other facts and knowledge. And I'll get into that a little bit later, uh, as I go through what I'm about to go through. The Supreme Court in a case called Graham versus Connor, and I'm going to pull that up in a screen share in just a second for those that are on the video audience. Uh, Graham versus Connor stems from a federal lawsuit uh, coming out of the use of force by some officers in, I believe it was North Carolina. Um, the court in Graham never ruled on the officer's actual use of force. What the court did in this initial ruling was reverse a lower court's uh, framework for making a decision. And the Supreme Court said, no, this is how all cases involving use of force in federal civil suits, the framework will be for deciding them. Now, keep the federal civil suits. That's where this case was held. You may get into some differences when you get into criminal law and state law. All right. So let me pull up the screen here. All right, Graham versus Connor, and the citation for this, if you want to look it up later, is 490 U.S. 386, 1989. And here the Supreme Court basically ruled that the Fourth Amendment is what applies to use of force, and specifically the reasonableness standard created by the Fourth Amendment, specifically objectively reasonable. Uh, Look up the word objectively. It basically dismisses your personal opinion, as we're going to look at the facts as they are and apply the standard. And the court in this case, a couple of things I want to point out. Here's a quote. The reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with 2020 hindsight, 2020 vision of hindsight. So the reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with the 2020 vision of hindsight. Now, it didn't say a reasonable person, it said a reasonable officer because the courts have many times overruled that officers had different training, different experiences, different knowledge than what a general member of the public may have, going all the way back to Terry versus Ohio, which is cited in this case. Um, let's go. I'll pull up something else in this case. So the calculus of reasonableness must embody allowance for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second judgments in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving about the amount of force that is necessary in a particular situation. Now, the first video of this incident I saw was from the driver's side perspective. And I'm going to be honest with you, which hopefully I'm always being honest with you, but here I raised eyebrows when I saw the first video. I was like, oosh, that one's going to be highly questionable. Then I saw the video from the other perspective, the other side angle of the car, I was like, okay, maybe, but still, I will want to interview the agent involved. And it was at that point in time that I learned that the agent had previously been hit and drugged by a vehicle. You got to figure that's weighing in his mind. And then, of course, later I saw the third angle that was, I think, taken from a camera that the agent was holding, and that gave a much different perspective on what happened. And then now I've seen a fourth angle from across the road that provided even different perspectives. So four different angles. The knowledge that the agent was previously drugged by a vehicle. Um, the wheels were spinning in ice on the roadway. The car's coming directly towards him and does in fact make contact with him. All of that has to weigh into whether or not that officer was objectively reasonable at the instant force was used. Now, again, going back to the language of the court case here, in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving, that agent doesn't get to watch four camera angles to determine whether or not he was justified in using deadly force. It happened to him live. Yeah, he's out there in that freezing weather. He's the one walking up on the car, and he's the one that all of a sudden got hit by the car. Excuse me for a second. He's the one got hit by the car. It was very tense and uncertain and rapidly evolving for him. All of that is going to weigh into what you can sure bet is a lawsuit forthcoming. Which, fun fact, lawsuits involving government officials, particularly out of the use of force, are typically filed under 42 U.S.C. 1983. That law was passed in the 1870s to battle the Ku Klux Klan's influence in government, and they would call it known as the Klan Acts. And then in the 1960s, civil rights attorneys began using that law to sue government officials for official acts that would deny someone of their civil rights. So the forthcoming lawsuit will probably be a 1983 lawsuit, and just fun fact, it's based on um, a law passed to battle the Ku Klux Klan. Now, as for prosecution, I've heard numerous statements about state officials claiming that they are being cut out. Well, Secretary Kristi Noem accurately stated they're not being cut out. They have no jurisdiction. This was a federal agent carrying out federal policy at the time the incident occurred. There is no state jurisdiction in this matter. Now, it's not a hard and bright line that a state can never prosecute a federal official. That's not what I'm saying here. It's when the federal official is carrying out federal policy for which the supremacy clause applies, then the federal agent is immune from state prosecution. Now, Article 1, Section 8 outlines the enumerated powers of the federal government. The 10th Amendment limits the federal government to those powers out enumerated in Article 1, Section 8. It's 18 things. In those policy areas, the federal government is supreme. Outside of those areas, the federal government is not supreme. But in those, if there's comes down to state law versus federal law is going to win. Um, there's not going to be a state prosecution in this. The state officials may bring charges, but the case would immediately be moved to federal court and would be dealt with in the federal courts. Now, let's just say somebody that works for a census worker is out taking the census and they run a traffic light um, and they get a ticket. The supremacy clause doesn't come into play there. That's not a matter of policy. That was a traffic offense. Then that would be charged. It could be prosecuted at the state level. So let's don't get carried away here. Um, One thing to remember when it comes to use of force, and I'm going to bounce back here for a second, is you don't have to like it. You don't have to personally agree with it. It may not look pretty, but that's not the standards. Those aren't the standards. The standard is for a federal civil suit, objective reasonableness. And I apologize. The beagle has gotten fired up about something in the background. She wants something out of the refrigerator. Again, objective reasonableness, and that whole framework is outlined in Graham versus Connor, which oddly enough, the officers that were involved in that incident mm, uh, probably didn't do too good in certain aspects of it. But that's not what the ruling in the case was about. Um, so ultimately, this incident is going to come down to whether or not the officer was determined to acted objectively reasonable. Um, if you don't think so, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say that's likely to change your mind. Um, so I'm not going to try. But I will ask you to put yourself in the shoes of you are walking up on a car and then all of a sudden it accelerates, the tires spin, and it slams into you. And in that instant, you had to make a decision for which you will be eternally judged. Um, Here's the other part of that is what matters legally was the use of force in the instant that it was used objectively reasonable? It's not a question of was it the best tactic or was it a good tactic or was the tactic successfully employed? It's just was it objectively reasonable based on what a perspective of a reasonable officer at the instant force was used and understanding that such situations are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving. Hopefully, this has clarified a couple of the issues just to give you an understanding. I'm not trying to change your opinion, but to maybe give you an understanding. And again, you don't have to like it. Thank you for your time.